All right. Good morning. Good morning. So we got an action-packed day today. There's going to be quite a bit of content I'm going to cover, and it looks like we had quite a few people that had pretty good results for the week. Now, I only have one in the studio, and the rest of you guys looks like you're in the live stream, which is fine. We picked up some additional folks in the live stream, as I mentioned from last week. I'm going to be bringing on a whole lot more people, but only people participating on the studio will be team members and my members from the original mastermind. So with that being said, we can always go through more content that way and kind of walk through the structure. The goal, as this whole mastermind has evolved over the last 27 weeks now, we're at week 27, half the year. The whole point of this was to use it as a beta system to kind of fill out what would be the best fit for taking on mass amounts of people. And it looks like the best thing to do is basically allow other people to come in, kind of like watching my team and I in action, how we do things, while being able to take advantage of the mastermind and accountability and coaching. So the easy way to do that is to walk them through. As you see here, every single week we do the mastermind, and the first thing we want to track is our milestones and KPIs. So as you can see here, this is what we do every single week. All the team members that have contributed or had something that they did for the week, they put those into the spreadsheet. And if you're curious what KPIs are, they're key performance indicators. What are those things that happen in your business that you should be tracking so that you know how you're doing from week to week? Now, the single point of focus I like to mention to people is really signatures. So if I was going to highlight anything on here, it would probably be this column right here. It's going to be the one that it drives everything else. Because if you think in reverse, in order to get signatures, you had to set appointments. In order to get appointments, you had to get leads. But if your whole thought process throughout the entire week is how many contracts can I get? How many contracts can I get? That's your single point of focus. And if you're trying to get contracts signed, you know the amount of work. That's the actual job of being a real estate agent. How do you get more contracts signed? And if you think about that philosophy just by itself and nothing else at all, if you were just to put that on the wall and put that question every single day, put it on your mirror, put it on your refrigerator, put it on your door on your way out of the house. And the only question you ever ask yourself is, how do I get more signatures on contracts? How do I get more signatures, meaning listing agreements, and obviously now buyer rep agreements, as well as 1 to 4 family contracts. But I like to focus on 1 to 4 family contracts and listing agreements. If you were to ask yourself, how do I get more signatures every single day? If you ask yourself that question, the answer is going to come. And what it's going to tell you is all the training, all the tools, all the practice, all the presentations, all the different seminars you go to, the goal setting. It's going to tell you all these things, because in order for you to get more signatures, you have to do all of those things. And if someone says, well, I'm not getting all the signatures I want, then you're not doing enough of those things. And so what we do here is go over as many things as possible with an actual roadmap, 52 weeks, so that there's never even a possibility that you won't have enough things to get you enough signatures. The issue is going to be, how do you organize your time? Are you able to do 8-hour work days, even though you're working for yourself? If you had a manager watching you every single day, would you hire yourself again? Because you know what it's like if you've ever worked a 9 to 5, what kind of hours and time you put in it. Are you doing the same thing for your real estate business? Now, a lot of people come in for the time freedom and the money freedom, and I like to say location freedom, but you're not going to have any of those when you first start this business. So you got to work your backside off when you first get started. And then from there, that's when you have to start looking at those other things. So what I'll do today is we'll jump right into the milestones. Several people have sent me messages letting me know that they're either out for, I guess the weather change is getting people. Some people are getting allergies. Some people are getting sick, but they're still filling out the form, which is exactly what I like to see. And for the people that are here in the studio, I will bring them up. But I'll go through the folks that sent me messages. Sherry had a pretty good week. I believe she had a closing or something that came up, but she got a couple of leads, 1 seller, 1 buyer lead. Bessie sent me a message. she's doing pretty well. She had 3 leads that came in from Facebook Marketplace, 1 renter, and the other 2 that came in, or I think 3 came in that were buyers. And they had applied for Divvy. I think it was a rent to own. So another Facebook Marketplace ad. So if you're not running Facebook Marketplace ads and you're wondering if they work, they do. It's just, again, it's the numbers game. So like I mentioned before, if you're getting 3 or 4 leads a week and you're like wondering, well, how many does it take? Well, that's what you have to discover. You have to determine, like, how many ads do I need to post on Facebook Marketplace to get the number of leads that I want. For example, when I was doing commercial ads on Facebook, this is a strategy I use, so you can take notes on this. But I use Facebook Marketplace to find out what ads give me the best results before I take it to a paid ad. And I did this on a commercial ad. We had 9 different ads that we ran. We posted these 9 different posts with 9 different ads. And out of the 9, we had 3 that basically got us all the leads. We had 51 total leads out of 9 different ads. Now, the craziest part was maybe 4, I think 2 or 3 picked up 25 leads. And then we had 1 that picked up 26 leads by itself. So I knew that out of 51 leads, if over half came from this one, and then we had 2 or 3 others that picked up 5 leads here, 6 leads here, 7 leads there, then we knew that the one that had 26 was our winner. It was pretty obvious. So we took that one and we went paid. At the end of 6 months, we had 243 leads that we picked up for less than $5 a lead, and we closed 2 leasing transactions that average about $6,000 each. So 243 leads at $5. So we spent about $1,000 and we made 12. So that's 1,200% return on your investment. So if you're tracking these numbers because you know where your lead sources are coming from, that's the whole point of this exercise. So you're wondering how many leads do you need to get? Well, I had to do 243 leads to get 2 closings. 243 to get 2 closings. That's just under 2%. And that's for commercial. And this was someone that was brand new, had no experience in commercial whatsoever. She just kept going back and forth with me with text messaging and saying, hey, I tried this, it didn't work. What would you do? And I'd send her another message. She tried, it worked, it came back. And so if we were doing this full time, yeah, I would probably get closer to 7%. That's always been my number. So 2.5 times more, almost 3.5 times more results if I was working all 243 leads myself. But obviously I can't do that. So the whole point is when you're going through these exercises and you're seeing what's happening, this is the case. So Bessie's picking up leads from Marketplace. You're going to pick up leads from all these other sources, and we're going to go through quite a bit of those today. I see Lakeisha had quite a few leads and a closing this coming up and this past week. So closings are always good. So congratulations to everyone that closed this week. And it looks like Andrea picked up 10 leads from the sources that she has, from listings to leads, and had an appointment. And looks like a seller lead and 2 appointments for sellers. And I know she got one of those under contract. So if you think about what you're seeing here, this is basically the whole point of tracking this. But again, your single point of focus is signatures, and everything about how many signatures, if you have, and I put a template together where basically you can put it on the wall and you track your signatures for the week. You project that you need to do 2 a week. How many did you actually get? Because if you're thinking about signatures every single week, hey, I need another signature, I need another signature, I need another signature. You have to have an overflow of leads, so you have an overflow of signatures. So overflow of leads leads to overflow of appointments, which leads to overflow of signatures. And that's really the goal we want to strive for, everybody. If we can get an overflow of leads, everything else becomes easy. You got to get to the point where you just don't care. Like I like to say, they're either going to be referral partners, clients, or tap out. And for everyone who's like, I don't want my 300 leads to tap out on me, so I don't want to bother them, then you're not doing your job as a real estate agent. You want to help every single person on that list that's ready for your help. And if you are worried, like, hey, I got 100, but the 10 that I'm working with, 3 of them seem serious, and I'm just going to wait and get to those other 90. Well, your business isn't going to grow. So if you got 100 leads in front of you, you work all 100 leads. And someone says, well, how do you do that? Well, if you have mass text like Lofty, you just learn how to use the mass texting system, put all 100 people in there, send them all the same message at the same time. And the ones that respond to you are the ones you respond back to. If it was 500, same thing, same concept. You just send the same message out to 500 people. When they respond back to you, the ones that respond are the ones you're ready to help right away. The other ones you leave in the nurturing campaign. So if you're not familiar with how to use the CRM, let me know. Anyone want some extra training on how to use the CRM, at least how to set up one campaign? Because I'm not going to spend all the time setting up Lofty. They have Lofty training with LPT already, and you can get some additional help from some of the people here local. But I can show you how to set up one campaign. And I think that in and of itself should be enough for people to say, okay, if I got hundreds and hundreds of leads, then that's what I want to do. I want to first be able to do that. So if you put in the chat, anybody who's interested in doing that, let me know. In one of the orientations at 10 in the morning, what I'm going to do is just basically help people get their Lofty set up in a way in which at least they'll have that one campaign. If you're on my team, it's easy because once I set it up, I can just give you access to it. You just upload it into your system and then you run with it. But again, knowing how to use it is just as important as setting it up. So what I'll do is help you set it up, and then we'll go over how to use it, because the key is mass texting or setting up these smart campaigns so that every time a lead comes in, you have them automatically getting responded to. So you're not going, oh, I'm only going to work with the 10 that I have that I feel like, I've done work with, and I'm going to keep pushing these 10 when there's 90 more that out of that 90, one of every 10 is probably more likely to give you business, whereas you just passed up those and only took advantage of the business with one or two people. All right, now, before I jump into all the additional training we're going to go through today, I'm going to bring up Lynn. She is here with us at the studio, so I'll let her go through her numbers here. It's like you got to do the assignment. Hey, good morning, Lynn.
Good morning.
Walk us through what you did here. Looks like you picked up a couple leads from Facebook group, and you had a chance to do some other stuff. So go ahead and walk us through.
Yeah. So got a new lead from my Facebook group. We are looking at new builds. Hopefully going to be putting in a contract this week from what he said. And it'll close beginning of January, probably. So it's still under construction. And then working on a possible listing as well. So.
And where'd you pick that up from?
She actually saw me on, it was a San Antonio group. I can't remember the name of it. It was a Facebook group.
Facebook group. Okay.
Yeah. So should be signing her hopefully this week.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you were able to get through some of the assignment. Did you just go back and look at some exercises? Which ones were you working on?
I am on I think it's week 10. Let's see here where it's left off. Week 10, Facebook Marketplace ad. But unfortunately, for some reason, Facebook has taken away my access, so I can't do Marketplace.
Well, we'll figure out. We'll talk about that tomorrow. See if we can get through that somehow. Otherwise, we have to look at another page. But good stuff. All right, so awesome. So as you can see here, when you take the time, even as you get more focused, people ask me, like, I was talking to a couple that Andrea introduced me to at the event we had with Shay Carter down on Tuesday. And, they were asking me a lot of questions about, the Listings to Leads platform and, what are some of the things that we do different. And it really did. That's where this conversation came up, where, if you're literally trying to think about, where do you get your business from? That's the key. Like, you have to be focused on signatures and not just how many. Again, it's not like Instagram likes. I think a lot of people will say, well, I got a bunch of leads and they're happy with that. Well, we want to take it to the next level. Don't just think, hey, it's like a bunch of likes. They like my ad. Well, that's great. Our job is really to get signatures. So our measuring stick has to be how many signatures we get on listing agreements and 1-4 family contracts. And so they were asking me, well, how do we generate the leads? And I talked about the platform, Listings to Leads. And Andrea, she's a big fan of it. You can see she picked up 10 leads here just from running these campaigns on her listings. Now, my thought process last week was to let everyone know, go for 100. Don't be happy with 10. I have a friend who I started off in real estate, and she has one listing. After working with me for 3 years, she picked up that one listing, and when she got back in the business, she literally was with a new broker, and they, helped her get that one listing. And she was so excited about that one listing that she forgot a lot of stuff that I taught her, because that was her first listing. She worked primarily with new builds. But my thought process has always been, don't stop at one. And so I sent her a message and I was like, I see that you're marketing the crap out of this one listing. I got it. How about get another listing? She just LOL, like, oh shoot. Like, yeah, I'm so caught up with this one listing. I'm so excited about it that I didn't realize that I need to keep the faucet going. Well, however you picked up that one listing, do it again. Your primary job is to keep marketing, not get caught up with the idea that, oh, I got a listing, how do I sell it? Because the signatures are what matter, not the closings. The closings are really irrelevant. There's not really much you can do to prevent the closing. You're going to have a 95% closing ratio on pretty much every signature that you get. Very rarely will you not. So it's going to be between 90 and 95%. 9 out of 10 people that you get under contract, you're going to close. So if you get them under contract, why worry about the closing so much? I got a listing. I'm going to wait for this one to close before I start looking for another one. I have a buyer. I'm going to wait for this one to close before I start looking for more buyers. So the same thing you're doing to generate these leads, just create an overflow. Think about that. Lead overflow, lead overflow, lead overflow. The more leads you get, the more signatures you're going to get. But that also means you got to have the skills to get those signatures. And that's going to be the biggest difference. And we're going to talk about that here in a minute. I'm going to jump into the dynamic agent 52-week digital roadmap. So I'm going to polish this up a little bit. Like I said, I'm going to separate the basic training stuff from here, put it into 2 different categories. So you'll have access to one as a boot camp, and then the rest will be just 52 weeks. But I'm going to clean this up, and I'm going to make it pretty much where it just gives you assignments, not so much step by step. It was going to be step by step because there's videos in there, but you just have to get to the week and do what the assignment says. And it's there. There's going to be people who say, I'm already way past my goal. I don't need all of this. Great. But for the people who are still looking for those ideas, my advice to you is going to be go deeper first. Go deeper first. And I'm going to give you a great example of that right here. So for all of the people who are we're at week 27. So if you've been following along and you're trying to figure out like, well, I'm not sure exactly what to do every time I see one of these assignments. Well, all I'm going to do is kind of go through and make them all look more like this for the ones that this applies. Well, the first thing I want you to do is be thinking video. That's really it. This whole thing is really about content. So as I'm teaching you how to generate leads, because that's what this is all about. If you can do all these other steps, we talk about the key performance indicators. First, we're talking about our brand. So it's BLAST. If you remember the acronym BLAST, and maybe I'll put that across every page so you never forget. First, you got to work your brand. And as I was mentioning, the people who came to the orientation, your brand is how people recognize you. So if they don't recognize you, they're not going to work with you. So first thing you want to do is make sure your Facebook page represents you. Make sure it's exactly what you want it to say. And little things like, you know, your logo, your colors, the consistency and the congruency of everything you do has to be similar. Tanya does a really good job with Sunshine Real Estate Team. You see, you know, her theme is her gold, yellowish gold color and her Sunshine Real Estate Team. So when you look at that, you know right off the bat that that's who you're dealing with. Now, if you send out mailers or you send out flyers, all that's going to be with the same color scheme and the same theme and the same logo, all of that stuff. But you also have to do the same thing when you're sending out text messages and emails. They have to know who you are. And part of that has to do with intro messages and stuff like that. And I'll get into that here in a second when I talk about what we do during the orientation on Fridays. But as you're going through the Dynamic Agent 52-week roadmap, this is literally what you should be thinking about the entire time. What is my assignment and how do I use this to generate more leads so I can get more signatures? Well, here you go. The only way you're going to generate more business is to make irresistible offers. And everybody wants to know, what the heck is an irresistible offer? Well, an irresistible offer is basically it's a solution to a problem. If you understand that about marketing, this game is easy. And I know that seems like the hard part, but that's why I'm going over it today. What is the solution to the problem? Who are you talking to? What's your audience? Who are you marketing to? Now, I think if everyone looks at this, and the reason I want to use this is because it's very specific. It takes us away from real estate because everyone talks about real estate so much. I think they get caught up in the fodder and they forget the whole point of what we're doing. This talks about student loan forgiveness. Everyone in the chat, just let me know, do you think student loan are a problem for people trying to buy a house. So if everyone knows that that's a problem, how do we solve that problem? And this is exactly the point I'm making here. Well, there's a company called My Education Solutions, and I'm going to go to the next page and show you that here in a minute. But what's our goal? Our goal is to reach out to these folks that have this problem. Because if we solve this problem, won't they be in a position to buy a house? And that's the key. So if I say, hey, here's the script, load the script to the teleprompter app. If you don't know what the teleprompter app is, it's in several assignments and listings to leads. So that's what's going to happen. Then it says, be outside with a selfie stick or gimbal and record yourself while walking. Okay, you want to get more views, you need to have something in the background that people are able to see. And then record the script. So, hey, I'm JJ with J Prime Realty Group, your trusted guide to homeownership in San Antonio. With this program, eligible participants can have a portion of their student loans forgiven, freeing up funds to put towards a down payment on a home. So right there, you're letting them know we can help you reduce your student loan debt, and that'll allow you to have more money to put toward a home. So people who didn't think they could get this done are now thinking maybe I can. Well, the same thing with down payment. A lot of people have this myth that it's 20%. Well, what if you tell them there's places you can get zero down? If you're a veteran, you don't need any money down. And if you do new builds, we can cover your closing costs. So maybe you've been spending years trying to put money away, 2 or 3 years trying to save up money. And then you realize, well, now I have this $5,000 to $10,000. I thought I needed a whole lot more, because 20% of 100,000 is 20,000. There are not very many homes. Well, I don't think there's any livable homes in San Antonio at 100,000, maybe a few, but not typically the customers we're looking for. But if you look at around 200,000, 40 grand, how many people are going to put away 40 grand? You know, and that becomes an entire issue. So if you're letting them know, hey, 3.5% or less, there's some conventional products at 3%, FHA at 3.5%, USDA 0, and your veterans are 0. And physicians can do 0. Now, of course, physicians can come up with other money for other reasons, but there's gift funds, down payment assistance, and all these other options. So the goal is to solve a problem. And if you know you can solve problems, that's what's going to make the difference for you here. Now, if you don't have a YouTube channel, then you're going to have to start look at some of the pieces here. I talked about posting and setting up a YouTube channel here. So if you set up your YouTube channel, then obviously you want to follow the steps to optimize your YouTube channel or set up and optimize your videos. So every time you load a video, you have to come up with the right title, the right description, the right keywords, and follow that whole template all the way down until you get like a 92 to 96% optimization on every single one of those. Now, once you've done that, then you have to optimize your channel. And then all of a sudden you'll see that you're getting a lot better results on the channel as well. Now, this is what student loan forgiveness looks like. If you're interested in the student loan, go to myeducationsolutions.com. I put that link in there. Just click that link. It'll take you to My Education Solutions, and you'll see what they can do for your clients. Now, outside of that, this is what we're going to go over tomorrow for anyone who's interested. During the training tomorrow, I'm going to go through basically a home sellers workshop. So what I'm going to do is kind of simplify that for everybody here today, because I know a lot of people are wondering, like, well, what the heck does that look like? What does that sound like? Well, what it should sound like is your listing presentation. So if you're doing a home sellers workshop and you don't realize it's a listing presentation, this concept will really, really help you, because that's the whole point. I think people get in front of folks and they're like, I'm in front of a whole room full of people and I'm supposed to do something completely different. Nope. I can turn this into a slideshow, but it's the same exact content I'm going to cover tomorrow. So anyone who comes to the training from 11 to 1, this is what they're going to see. I'm going to talk about LPT and how it helps us with all the, number one, it reduced the cost because of our commission structure. Number two, we can get marketing material at cost because he owns the print shop. And typically some of those things come in at just the cost of shipping and handling. So when you understand that, you already know, like, that's obviously going to help you. So you get all this marketing material for less amount. The more money you can keep in your pocket is going to help you, generate more business without having to go broke. So that's number one. But now, if you're not very good at giving this presentation, I can promise you your signatures are not as high as they should be. This is also why a lot of people don't want to generate a lot of leads, because they don't have something like this. They asked at the training yesterday, we were with Mary doing ethics training, and she asked the question. She said there's like 70 or 80 people on the call. And she said, how many of you have an actual presentation? Like 4 or 6 people raised their hand. Less than 10% of the people have actual presentations, which to me, I have presentations for everybody on the team. You just have to download them, which means you got to download them. If people are waiting on me to print out all this stuff and say, hey, you're part of the team, here you go. So if you're saving money when you're joining the brokerage, then you got to use that money to do your marketing. And I know it's tough sometimes, but what I do is I email them a copy of this, and I keep a hard copy with me at all times. So it's only one copy. I have it printed and then bind it over at UPS. It's a little bit cheaper than going to Office Depot or those other places. And I get the nice spiral bound that will hold for a while, not the cheap ones, because I plan to keep this for a while. And then whenever I'm out, whenever I meet people, I bring those with me. I have one for commercial leasing, one for commercial listings, one for commercial buyers, one for residential buyers, one for residential sellers. So wherever I go, I have these with me. It's in my bag at all times. And so all I do is I bring this out. So if you're doing a home seller's workshop, what's the difference? Instead of 1-to-1, you're doing 1-to-many. So if you look at what I'm putting up here, and I'll go ahead and just make this an entire slideshow for today, but I just want everyone to kind of see, like, this is a material I'm going to cover tomorrow. I'm going to get in way more detail tomorrow than I am today, but I just want people to see you should have a presentation. And if you're on my team and you don't, this is your starting point. For everyone who's afraid to do listings because you're not sure what you're supposed to say, the one thing that came up when Shay's meeting was a lot of people, talk about statistics of their company. And the truth is, you don't sound like a trusted advisor. When I go through the 4 costly mistakes that agents make to prevent them from making 6 figures, that's actually the number one thing I talk about. Talk about, or try to show yourself as a trusted advisor, as a consultant, as a leader, not as a salesperson. Salespeople always talk about their numbers. That's why it's so interesting to me when you watch the brokers. Hey, when you start your presentations from our company, what I want you to do is first talk about us. Talk about the billions of dollars of real estate we've sold and how many homes we've sold and how great the brokerage is. Well, you just sound like everybody else. My presentations don't even have anything about me in them, because I want my team members to realize, like, all right, if you want to brand yourself, that's your brand. Yes, that should be on your covers or whatever you want to do. Modify them however you want. Just keep them in theme. But the bottom line is, when you start thinking about setting yourself up for a presentation, it's about the information in the presentation and how it's going to help your client, not about how it's going to show you off as a salesperson. And that's the difference. People ask me all the time, what's the difference? Andrea mentioned to the couple yesterday or the other day that, yeah, when he did a presentation for me, the clients were like, how do we get to keep you, right? It's like, well, because I shared my information and I'm passionate about it. And I'm going to show you a little bit about that here. So as you can see here, like, I always start off with referrals. Hey, our goal is to be 100% referrals. So hopefully you'll be willing to do that with your friends and family members, because I plan to do, a 5-star job. If I do a 5-star job, hopefully you'll refer me your friends and family. Well, of course I would, right? Well, who would say no if you're doing a 5-star job for them? All right. And then I'm talking about the journey, right? So we all know that there's a process. So go through the process with them. Hey, the journey for you guys is going to look like this. First, we're going to have a consultation, which is what we're doing right now. Then we're going to talk about setting the price and objective pricing strategies, what I use. We have prepare your home, list your home, show your home. Then we're going to receive and negotiate offers, evaluate offers, go into contract. They're going to do a home inspection. They're going to finalize the sale. And then basically, the closing process where they transfer funds, you get the money and they get the keys. So how do we make all that happen? Well, then I talk about the difference, right? So let me back up. So we talk about the secrets that successful home sellers use. And again, this may sound more like a pitch, but that's probably about it for me. Then from there, I educate. And here's the language I use. When you sign exclusively with J Prime Realty Group, we do the following. And if you want a quick elevator speech, I'm not going to get into all these bullets. I'll probably do it tomorrow, but it's locate, negotiate, and facilitate. That's basically how I start my presentation. When I first got started, everybody was like, well, how do you remember all this? I didn't. I just came up with a nifty little acronym and I said, locate, negotiate, facilitate. And I remembered that. So if someone said, what do you do? I help you locate buyers. I mean, you know what you're trying to help them do. So, and I help you negotiate. And I was like, oh, you know what? That's a great place for me to throw in the IABS, where I talk about protecting their interest above my own. I negotiate your best interest above my own. What does that mean? Well, I'm not looking out for me. I'm looking out for you. And then I came up with bullets to go along with that. So, negotiating has to do with analyzing incoming offers, counter offers, fairly negotiating any differences for closing costs, repairs, and such. So once you've done enough of these, this becomes a very easy speech. And then it's like, well, what about facilitation? So if they get caught up in the idea, especially on the buyer side, where you just sound like a showing agent, that's because you don't have something like this. Guess what? My buyer presentation looks exactly the same. The only difference is it says locate homes faster instead of locating buyers faster. And then I talk about the differences with that. So when you understand that this is really where you get the signatures done, this is where you need to spend most of your time. I tell people this is not just a tool for your clients, it's also your textbook. Learn from this. Just like with the buyer side, where you're learning a little bit about loans here and there. And when Mary talked about the GRI yesterday, I asked her to go through the topics just so people would hear the topics about it yesterday. And she mentioned number 1, contracts, number 2, marketing. And the third part of the GRI training is financing. Financing. So for everyone who says we were told not to, maybe they didn't take the GRI, maybe they don't understand the importance of financing. But if you're a buyer rep and you don't understand the concept behind financing, then maybe the GRI will help point that out to you. Because if you're working with me and you're part of my team, I harp on financing so much, you're almost going to feel like you're a loan officer. I'm not going to teach you how to do loans, but you should understand the concept so you can question loan officers. Hey, wait a minute. I thought that, like, for a very simple one, if USDA, get really good at USDA, because most of your builders don't want to use them unless someone points it out to them. Hey, I think my clients qualify for USDA. And if someone says, well, how do you know? Well, you're qualifying. You're not pre and approving them. You're qualifying them. So if you know those guidelines, well, first off, there's an income restriction. But the income restriction is based on how many family members. 1 to 4 family members is up to $110,000. 5 to 8 family members is up to $146,000. So right there, Then you say, well, what is the credit score? 640. That's income ratio, 43%. That's only 3 things you got to remember. That's it. So if you remember the income restriction, the credit requirements, and the debt to income ratio, and you ask your clients, a little bit of information so you can determine that information, you're going to know whether they qualify for USDA or not. And if the builder's saying, well, we just like to get everybody qualified for FHA, that's fine. Get them qualified for FHA, but I want them to get approved for USDA, because if my clients qualify for that, I want to save them as much money as possible. And you'll be surprised at how many of them will say, well, I have to run that up to my manager. Then run it to your manager. A lot of the junior loan officers don't know how to do USDA, so they're not going to even bring it up. So that's why you want to talk to someone in the shop that can. And again, that's on the buyer side. And again, I'm going to be talking about mostly seller stuff. But just like the buyers, when you're looking at the seller stuff, like the stuff you're seeing in this package, and I'm going to bring up a lot of it tomorrow, and we're going to have a discussion about it. But it really does boil down to, when someone signs with you, what are you offering them? And you have to be able to articulate that. When you sign with me, this is what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to help locate, negotiate, and facilitate this entire process. Make this easy for you. I'm going to do the heavy lifting. Then I talk about 89 different types of turbulence. I remember having an agent that was like, you're going to scare people off with this. And she took it out of the presentation. And then it was weird, because she said the 2 people that she was working with that weekend wouldn't return her phone calls. It was like, well, if you don't understand this concept, that's probably why. They need to see how much work we do and how many issues they could run into. I mean, if I was going to do a 1-page presentation, this is it right here. 89 types of turbulence. If I walked into someone's house and said, here are the 89 different things that could go wrong, and there's a bunch more if you don't use a real estate agent. So here's some of the things I can do to help keep these things from going wrong. And they read through this, they go, oh my God, I didn't even know you can handle all of that. Just imagine all the people that think we don't do very much. And you have this with you. You pull that out And I've had people literally, if they had my presentation, they would take, maybe it's because the print smaller, but they would say, hey, do you mind they take that from me so they could look at it up close? And they're like, wow, I didn't know there was that much involved. And that's the problem. Think about the lawsuit. If you think about the lawsuit, this is the problem. Too many agents are out there literally thinking like she was thinking, I don't want them to see all of this. Well, maybe the truth is she didn't want them to see it because she didn't want to have to try to explain it all, because it's a lot of information. You should be able to read every single bullet on here and go, if I don't know the answer, I at least know where to find it. If I haven't dealt with that problem, I at least know who I can talk to help me solve the problem. And that's it. Now, imagine someone reading that going, wow, you guys do a lot more than we thought you did. Well, that's the whole point of the presentation. If your presentation isn't leading people in that direction, you're not doing it right. You need everyone to go, wow, you guys do a whole lot more than we thought you did. And then they're going to hire you. Now, from there, I've just set it up in a way in which you can be very transparent. And as I tell people, I will throw other realtors under the bus in general, not specific people. But it's like, how do we stay in compliance, right? So we offer seller's choice listing packages from 5 to 7%. Now, if someone asks me, like, how do I do that now? Well, you just reduce it down to 2 to 3%, and we have to wait and see what the buyers are going to come up with. But I would recommend that we, be willing to give up between 5 and 7% of your proceeds from the sale of the home to help out these other buyers. And if someone says, well, why is that? Well, these are all the reasons I like to give them. It's like, number one, most agents are not very good at disclosing what we do and what we offer. So I want to make this crystal clear. Sellers pay the listing brokerage, and we're going to obviously change this because this has now been completely converted. But the listing brokerages offer incentives to buyers. So I can say this is what we used to do. Now we have to do it on they have to do it, and then we have to wait and see what they're asking for. And then again, we want to incorporate as much as 7%, just in case. And they say, well, that's just too much. Well, see, if you start at 7% and then you start reducing your fees from there, and they go, so if they come in at 3%, can I come back and offer them only 2%? You sure can. So that means I'll go from 7% down to 6%. Yep. And instead of giving up that extra $5,000, I get to keep that amount. That's right. So what if I go down to 5% and then you guys do 2.5 and 2.5, or you do 3% and we only offer them 2%? You can do that as well. So now they're thinking, now I get to keep $10,000 to my bottom line, but I can use this to negotiate with. Absolutely. You're going to have to be able to do math. For anyone in real estate that says, I hate math, well, you're going to have to learn math, because you got to be able to share with your clients, especially your sellers, how much they're going to net based on how much the commissions are. Because that's a lot of times that's the most expensive fee. Almost every time, everyone I've seen, it is the most expensive fee they're paying is your commission. So when they ask, like, people just ask me all the time, well, what the heck would you say to justify the commission going to the buyers? Well, we have to offer them something, because what going live actually means is that we're trying to leverage 15,000 other agents in San Antonio. I'm only one person, but 15,000 people can reach a whole lot more people than I can by myself. And so it only makes sense that we offer them something to come to us. Now, if they bring an offer to us and we fill out a contract and we say we're not willing to give them anything, and then they got to go to their buyer and say, hey, the seller's not willing to give me anything, so you're going to have to pay it out of pocket. Well, whatever they got to pay their realtor out of pocket, they can no longer apply towards the cost in the home and the closing costs, et cetera. So if you can explain this to your sellers pretty easily, then you're going to obviously get them to sign more listing agreements. But that's your goal. Now, from there, it's like, if someone says, well, what's an objection? Again, if your presentation overcomes your objection, I'll touch on this one, and I'm going to move on from this slide because it could take up forever. But it says, we watch the builders as they offer as much as 4 to 6, 7, 8% to buyers. That's our competition. That's our real competition. We're not just looking at what your friend down the road said. Hey, I didn't pay anybody anything. Who knows? Who knows what your friend did to do that? But we know builders offer a lot to buyer agents for a reason, because that's where 80% of their business comes from. And we got to compete with that. So then I'm going to say, hey, what else do we do when you sign with us? Well, we want to create a social media frenzy, because I run ads on Facebook. I have a 100-point marketing plan, and I go through X, Y, and Z. This is where your listings to leads will come in handy. You're like, hey, where's all this come from? Just think about listings to leads. So when you're going through this slide, you can talk about some of these bullet points, but you're also saying the goal is to create multiple offer situations. But the way I do that is through my marketing. I have a 100-point marketing plan, and this is how it works, blah, 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 blah. Now you have all those tools from, if you're with LPT, you have all your listing package tools, plus you have the listings to leads where you can show them digitally all the stuff you're going to do. And if all this stuff, if you added their homes to a listings to leads and created a landing page before you went in there, just imagine how powerful that's going to be. You already set up their home before you go on the listing presentation and listings to leads, and then show them all the marketing material you're going to have. And then you show them your LPT stuff, and you go, in addition to that, I'm going to have hard copies that I'm going to pass around this entire neighborhood. And when I do open house, I'm going to get a box for open houses and do the same thing. So that's what that's going to look like. Then I go through my marketing arsenal. I will do the basic marketing for 5%. 6% I'll do this, 7% I'll do this. Now, again, the numbers will change based on 3% being negotiated by the buyer. We don't know what they're going to come up with, but I'm always going to say to my clients, it's 6 or 7%. That's what you can expect. Anything that we can negotiate at the time of the offer, we will do that. And if that lowers that amount and puts more in your pocket, of course, that's what we want. We're going to put more money in your pocket by trying to generate enough people to be competitive and create a multiple offer situation. Now, in this market, it may be a little slow, but the concept still makes sense to your sellers. Now, I'll tell them, if you're trying to give them a reason to stay with you and not walk away, it's no obligation assurance, right? So if you don't like some of the stuff in here, then don't use it. But for me, I don't force anyone to stay with me. The only time I charge money is if they ask me to do like drone coverage or staging or power washing or something like that. Then I'm going to be like, yeah, we're going to need like a $500 deposit. And, if you don't sell a home, we're keeping it, because I'm not going out of my way to get all that stuff done. Or they're going to pay them directly and have it done themselves. Communication guarantee. If I don't talk to you X amount of times, etc., you want to have all these basically guarantees. Part of your seller's package or your pre-listing package is to let them know, here's all the things I want to offer you and why you should work with me, because I'm not trying to like tie your hands. If you don't like working with me, then we don't need to work together. But if you do, here's all the things I'm going to do that you're not going to see from other people. Now, again, this is a pretty robust package for a reason. I want people to see it and go, wow, that's pretty cool. I'm going to get into this in detail tomorrow, but a lot of people say they don't know what to say when they update their clients. And I'm like, you should call them every single week and update them. And they're like, what do I say? I call it SOAPs. You should be able to talk about showings, offers, actives, pendings, and solds. And I'll get into that more again tomorrow. Now, once you get to a certain point, this is where I close them. It's like, all right, so basically I've already shown you what I'm going to do, X, Y, and Z. Now we have about 2 weeks before we can start marketing your property. Is 2 Wednesdays or 3 Wednesdays from now good for you? Why Wednesday? Because we're going to go live on Thursday, and I'm not going to let your house be shown until Saturday when I do an open house, and we're going to create that frenzy. Oh, shoot, that's right. Yeah, I like that idea. That's cool. Yeah, last time I did that, we had about 40 people show up at the open house, and we had people walking through the house that same day because we held people off Thursday and Friday. Oh, gotcha. Okay, well, yeah, we needed maybe the third Friday, okay, or the third Wednesday. Perfect. Okay, so 6 days from now or 12 days from now, what I need is all these things done. And then they'll say, I need a copy of the keys. Let me know your preferred lockbox location. Copy the survey, your MLS data sheet, showing instructions, complete measurements, etc. Declutter and clean for professional photos. And if we need to do staging, etc., we'll have that all done a week prior to going live. And then boom, if they say, cool, what do we need to do? Sign here. And that's it. And you can leave. I always bring a hard copy with me when I go to my presentations. And then I close out by sharing this with them. Yeah, we're real estate professional for life. So what does that mean? Our relationship continues after the home is sold. I can offer these services for you whenever, if you go to your new place, or you can have someone, whether it's housekeeping, baked goods, skincare, I don't care what it is. If you need help, I got you covered. If you need another agent because you're moving out of state, I got help there as well, whatever the case may be. But this is what you're thinking about. You are a real estate professional for life. You want your clients to see you as that agent that is always going to be there. Again, your goal is to reach 100% referrals. And the best way to do that is to be taking care of your clients even after the sale. You make $10,000 off someone, I think that's enough money to consider them a lifetime client. And that's how I look at it. My clients come back and they're like, hey, we want to sell our house again. And we just thought of you. It's like, okay, cool. They bought it with me and they want to sell it with me. Well, it was 3 years later. I didn't do a whole lot of marketing, but I knew I took care of them and they remember my presentation. When I was like, the thing that I remember most is you told me you were going to get a cleaner to come to my house 30 days after we moved in. And I remember we called you, you had the cleaner. They were there the same week. I was like, oh, cool. So that's why I remembered you, because you did what you said you were going to do. And for all my buyers, I like to do stuff like that. So if you're thinking like what in my buyer presentation, the same concept, hey, 30 days prior, either we can do lawn care or we can have a, housekeeper come out and take care of you in that fashion. But that's what that presentation looks like. So for anyone who is there tomorrow, you get to see that in a lot more detail. And that's kind of the whole point of it. What we do in the mornings at 10, if you're coming in early, is we talk about the initial contact. I went over that the first week, and formal presentation. Tomorrow you're going to get to see extremely formal, but the difference is going to be I'm going to present it as if I was doing it to a room full of people as opposed to one-on-one. So if you're thinking like, what's the difference? There isn't one. I'm going to probably change the slides over into, and I might just leave it like it is. I'll decide that later today, but I can transfer that over into a horizontal presentation versus the vertical. But basically the same information. I'll add some motivational steps in the beginning. I'll add some motivational steps at the end and things like that. But bottom line is it's going to be the same thing. Just in front of people, you want to give them some type of motivation. Steps like, how many people in here think it would be hard to sell their home on their own? So the theme of the workshop that I would do for FSBOs would be how to sell your home without an agent, because that's going to get their attention. And so I'm going to, weave a little bit of that stuff in there tomorrow so you can actually see me do a live presentation as if there was a group of sellers in front of me. But it's going to encompass pretty much everything that you see or saw today, and go into it from there. But again, that's the formal versus informal presentation. We talked about New Home Source. We set that up. We'll get into builder relationships and things of that nature at the orientation. And then, of course, if you haven't worked with RPR video scripts, that's what we do on the 4th week. I did intro that the other day, but I can introduce this probably next week. Well, we're not going to be meeting next week. So for everyone that's going to celebrate Thanksgiving, enjoy your Thanksgiving. If you guys have any questions or any comments you want to share, go ahead and share those in the group now so I can see them. But otherwise, hopefully you guys got a lot out of the training today. And again, every Friday, 10 o'clock is orientation, 10 to 10:50. And then at 11 o'clock, I start the actual meeting. For anyone who's part of LPT, make sure you bring as many people as you know, invite them, get them to introduce them to the team as well as the brokerage, and they'll get some free training and of course free lunch. So that's kind of the goal. Every single week we want to go through that, but next week we're going to take the week off, and I'll see you guys the first week of December. Otherwise, I'll see you guys tomorrow, and you guys have a great week, great weekend. All right, take care.